start?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Vanakkam and Nandri. Thank you all so much for being here and happy International Women's Day. My name is Kanmani Duraikkannan. I'm a senior at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I study politics, and my personal focus is actually on gender-based development. And a lot of my expertise looks at how policy can meaningfully advance women's lives. So I'm so excited to be here. And I'm so honored to be moderating today's event for Puratchikkavinnar Bharathidasan Tamil Mandram, which is titled Tamil Woman Shining in Exceptional Fields. So before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the history of International Women's Day. And so the first National Women's Day was observed in the United States in 1909, and it was organized by the Socialist Party of America in honor of the 1908 government workers' strike in New York, where thousands of women took to the streets to demand shorter hours, better pay, and the right to vote. Then in 1911, it was celebrated internationally for the first time across Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland, where women once again marched demanding the right to work, to vote, to hold public office, and to end discrimination. In 1970, women in Russia went on strike. And in 1975, the United Nations first officially recognized March 8th as International Women's Day. Today, it's observed over 100 countries across the world. And more than a century later, here we are, and we're all still marching, we're still organizing, and we're still gathered here today in rooms like this one because the work is still not done. Gender equality has still not been achieved. I remember when I first became aware of gender inequality. I was in my first computer science class in college, and the room was dominated by men. I had male students, male professors, and I heard condescending comments that were subtle, but they were consistent. And it was really shocking to me to realize that in the United States and globally, girls consistently outperform boys in math and science throughout K-12 education. But by the time we reach university or the workforce, we're dramatically underrepresented in STEM. And it's not limited to just these fields, it shows up in other places as well. So after researching, I came to understand that this isn't about ability, it's about gender-based stereotypes and occupational segregation. Occupational segregation means that certain fields such as tech, engineering, finance, they get socially coded as male, while others get coded as female. And so, young women get nudged away from certain paths because they see all these signals and, all these indicators in their lives, the way people talk, the media, and things of the sort, and they feel like certain fields aren't for them. So today we're here as a Tamil community, and we have a very rich social fabric. But like all societies, Tamil culture, it holds a lot of tensions. There's aspects of our society, and there's tons of expectations in regards to marriage, domesticity, and women's roles that can constrain women in our families and in our communities. But, we have tons of intellectual and social history that we can look back upon and that give us the tools for change. I knew I grew up constantly hearing from my dad about Periyar, and his social reforms and his advocacy for women's rights in India, and how that crosses with also his activism for against caste. And he championed self-respect, education, and things of the sort. And his self-respect movement was decades ahead of its time. And I remember reading stories, or not stories, poems actually from Thiruvalluvar, and reading Tirukkural which was written more than 2,000 years ago, and thinking about values such as virtue, compassion, and equity that I think deeply resonate with feminist values. Additionally, in Tamil Nadu today, there's several forms of social welfare, such as free bus travel for women, expanded maternity benefits, and strong self-help group networks or other government schemes which support girls' education. And so I think there's much to be proud of, but there's also a lot left to build. Today, women's rights are under attack, both in the United States and globally. Currently in the US, the current political administration has rolled back protections for women in the workplace, in schools, and in healthcare. Globally, we are watching the rise of authoritarianism and far-right movements that consistently target women's autonomy as part of their agenda. And we're also living through a technological transformation. I'm sure you guys have heard about AI everywhere, but artificial intelligence is also reshaping labor markets in ways that disproportionately affect women. From clerical jobs to creative industries, women's work is being automated and devalued at accelerating rates. But I'm so glad to have an amazing lineup of speakers today to remind us of the importance of championing women, our communities, and spurring change on a large scale, but also on the local level. Because change starts with us, and it starts here in community, and the stories we tell each other, and who we lift up as models and leaders. So with that today, we are fortunate to have three extraordinary women who embody all that I've talked about above, and that's Dr. Nimmi Gowrinathan, Jeeva Muhil, and Dr. Kalai. And so there's going to be time for questions after all three speakers finish, but for now they will speak one by one without interruption. And first, I'm so excited to introduce again Dr. Nimmi Gowrinathan. She's the publisher of Adi magazine, and she's also an activist, writer, scholar, and founder of the Politics of Sexual Violence Initiative, where she directs Beyond Identity, a gendered platform for scholar activists at the City College of New York. And she's the creator of the Female Fighter series at Guernica magazine. She's described by Valeria Luiselli, I hope I'm saying that right, as proof of a political imagination like no other. Her first book, Radicalizing Her, examines the complex politics of the female fighter. Her forthcoming book, Occupation and the Body, reads injury from the intimate terrain of the body to locate deeper impulses towards liberation. She has been an analyst and policy consultant on women's political voice for the International Crisis Group, the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, UN Women, and the Asian Development Bank. She's a senior scholar at the Center for Political Conflict, Gender, and People's Rights at the University of California, Berkeley. She also provides expert analysis for CNN, MSNBC, Al Jazeera, and the BBC, and her political essays have appeared in Harper's Magazine, Freeman's Journal, McSweeney's Quarterly, Guernica Magazine, and Foreign Affairs, among others. Thank you so much for being here, and we're so excited to hear from you.
Thank you for having me. It's always really nice to speak to Tamil people because you have so many things you don't have to start with. You can start from a different place of engagement. I was listening to the bio and thinking how I turned against so many of those institutions through the process of my political work over the past 20 years. But I think that's part of what I want to talk about today, like the spaces that we can engage on gender and the ways in which certain spaces use gender in the policy world, the NGO world, to further their own agendas. Because this is a Tamil audience, I want to talk a little bit, especially to the younger folks, about the kind of moment that this consciousness begins, right? I think that it's not always what we think it's going to be. I don't think it has to be an extreme moment where these politics begin. For me, I always think about the Tamil home. So I'm Alam Tamil. My parents are from Jaffna. And so we are part of the Alam Tamil community in Southern California. And I can remember in the Alam Tamil home, our homes together with the aunties, that we had these birthday parties, right? And that was always a big tradition in Alam, that we would have parties even during the war, because the birthday was something you could celebrate, right? And you remember sort of the uncles in one area, the aunties in the other, and the children are running between the two. And, from a child's perspective, you couldn't quite see those things, right? When you're at that level, you can't quite see what this difference is or why it's like that, right? So I would hide in the closet with my cousin, and we would try and scare my sister and my older cousin. But you don't realize at that age that, even then I was sitting above a basement that was holding these boxes that had our Tamil history in it. I remember our big concern really being who was going to pass a love letter to another Tamil teenager, whose plate was empty enough to put on top of the pile in case the aunties inspected your plate on the way to the trash can. But I think now I understand, the past 20 years I've spent working with Tamil women who participated in the resistance struggle, also with female fighters around the world. And I know that this recreation of Tamil life for us in California was a form of resistance, right? That it was a kind of collective act, a community sacrifice for us as Tamil children to exist freely, right? It was also, as Kanmani points to, a kind of reenactment of cultural conformity in America, right? Young women were meant to be dedicated to education, matched in marriage, sacrificed in motherhood. And for me, there's an essay actually that I wrote recently. It's called The Object of Discipline, but it's about the 20 years I spent in Bharathidasan, and then suddenly when I got divorced, moving away from it altogether and never going to see a dance performance or a singing performance or anything, because for me the culture had been what held me captive in a difficult marriage. You know? So it was about my return to dance and how I returned to culture. But I was with recently the founder of the Tamil Nation in London last year. He was a huge figure in the literary world. And he said, you know, Tangachi, how did you become Nim? And I said, I was very young when I met the Tamil female fighters in Alam. Right, I was 19 years old when I met them in Batikalo, and this was early in the struggle when they had just joined the struggle. And for myself and for Tamil imaginaries everywhere, I'm very close to the Indian Tamil writer and thinker Meena Kandasamy, and we talk a lot about how back then we didn't know each other, but this figure, the disciplined figure of the female fighter, held these new possibilities of power, right? She was tired of captivity to protect her identity. She traded the folded saris for loose fatigues. She didn't absorb blows. She shot soldiers. No, even motherhood in that space was a commitment to reproduce the resistance. So for me, it's been 20 years, but I'm still learning from the fighter, from the Alam Tamil fighter. My PhD at UCLA was about why women rebel. And I wrote a book called Radicalizing Her. And this was important to me, especially writing in the United States. The goal of bringing women into the analysis was not for inclusion, right? It was just for education, to reveal the limits of our imagination on the political possibilities of women's resistance. It wasn't saying, oh, look at these Tamil women, you've only looked at men and not women. It was saying, if you look at these women deep enough, if you listen to them, they're teaching us something about politics we didn't know before. Right? And that's very different than the goal of inclusion. And then about 5 years ago, Dr. Angana Chatterjee, who was one of the women who uncovered the mass graves in Kashmir, she asked me to help develop an archive on the legacies of violence in South Asia at Stanford University. And for me, at that moment, the generation who defined the liberation struggle were beginning to die, right? And the retributive justice of the state, they were constantly destroying this kind of material proof of violence and violence against women in particular. So it felt like everything was at risk. It felt like it was urgent. You know, we even had one case where there was an uncle in upstate New York and he had all of the archives in his basement. And that week we were going to see him, and the weekend before there was a hurricane in New York and his basement flooded. You know, and so we lost everything like in one day. And, you know, it makes me think of, particularly for the college students out there who know Edward Said, you know, the way he used to say, part of the main plan of imperialism is that we will give you your history. We will write it for you. We will reorder the past. What's more truly frightening is the defacement, the mutilization, and ultimately the eradication of history, right? So for the Palestinians and the Alam Tamils, this was a fear for us, right? That this history would be lost. So I became a kind of accidental archivist, right? And part of the reason I want to talk about the archive is especially the younger generation should know that we are weighted in a very heavy history of women's resistance, right? And that we have to move from that place. And so there was one evening in New York where there was two uncles who transferred all these boxes from a basement in New Jersey to my apartment. And we went out for Thai food because Tamils love Thai food. And in these boxes, you know, it was a really powerful moment for me. I had just gotten divorced. I was raising my son by myself. He was 4. We had this tiny apartment. And these boxes almost overwhelmed this tiny space, right? But when I went into them, you know, obviously at a moment which I was struggling with the divorce, in between these VHS videos are these bent photos of Tamil women in bell bottoms in the 70s protesting outside the White House. In between some of the speeches of the leaders is the stenciled artwork of the female fighter. There's these tissue paper thin, like political pamphlets calling for revolution that used to pass around the Northeast. And so, I mean, in many ways, I think at that time, these boxes saved me, you know, like, and I also felt a burden, right? Because when you have these materials, they're both meaningful, and without a concerted effort, they're meaningless, right? They could just sit there. And I was drawn to sort of the markings of and about Tamil women, right? There was a thicker booklet that was emblazoned with the kind of insignia of the tigers that came from their publication, and it's a collection of speeches by the leader. And on International Women's Day in 1992, he cites the dual struggle for Tamil women against Tamil patriarchy and the racist state. Right? He said the practice of the dowry was to be banished, domestic violence was to be punished, sexual violence of any kind would be met with a death sentence. Now, I don't think this Yigam or any other movement, you know, has ever perfected being able to elevate women's rights alongside a national struggle, a class struggle. That's never happened. But this is important to know that the articulations and the efforts were there, right? And how the perceptions of women were beginning to change. There was a political supporter who was sort of elderly, and it's, you know, this was 60 years ago, and he said, he writes in his notes, how the Tamil woman, who was a docile, meek, peace-loving member of the Tamil society, turned out to be such a courageous, bold, and sacrificing person, offering herself to fight injustice and save the Tamil nation, is really unbelievable, but it's true. And, you know, in the reference to the third girl, you know, to me, again, with my friend Mina, who translated The Second Woman in 2,000 Years to do so, she talks about in the third girl, there's this line of carrying the battle axe of politics into loftier spheres, you know, and when she reorients the third girl, what she does is Mina actually pulls apart the lines of these traditional couplets to show how open Tamil society has always been to Tamil women's participation. And she translates, a woman is not someone to be imprisoned, her movements watched over. So for me, the history was handed to me by my uncles, and my appa is my biggest fan. But I found my role in the struggle through the female fighter, right? That's how I entered into the struggle. And so I want to, particularly at this moment, I think it's important to talk about genocide, you know, to talk about our genocide. In May 2009, that for us, for me, I had been active in the movement for 10 years by then. It was a deep cut, of course, right? And the political self for me formed around the kind of edges of this wound. And I learned a lot about what it meant to be an activist in the West at that time. You know, obviously now and then, like in the service of the state's agenda to evade accountability, the survivors of genocide are asked to move on, right? You cannot move on from something that constitutes you, right? The question is, how do we move from, how do we mobilize from this, right? And so there are moments that become kind of this fracture in the consciousness, you know, that it's like a muscle that rips before it strengthens. There was moments that marked my memory, that mark every woman's memory, right, of something that happened. I remember sitting outside the UN running the Sri Lankan working group, and there was one of those, whatever, conference phones in the middle, and the women from Tamilar were telling them everything that was happening, all of the bombings, the shellings every day. And after the call, none of the NGOs would sign the letter. They were all choosing advocacy over access, right? There was the moment when the head of the UNHCR is sitting in front of you and says, oh, it was so sad when we had to drive out of Kilinochchi and the Tamil women were sitting in their saris blocking the road, right? When I met with Samantha Powers with Ban Ki-moon, I sat in front of them thinking like, okay, if I give you this information, then you'll stop, right? Like the more visible we are, we could stop the pain, right? Not knowing that they already knew. They didn't need the information. They didn't need the images. They already knew, right, what was happening. And for the Tamil women there, these moments that happened in 2009, these are not things you move on from. The Tamil women who put their husbands on the bus run by the Red Cross, the last time they saw their face was in the frame of that bus on May 18th. The children who remember putting their mothers and fathers on that bus, who are now in their 20s. That is a moment, those faces going away in that bus that will never be erased from their memory. No, the cultural markers at the end that were repurposed to protect. There was wedding saris that were ripped to fill with sand and to protect from the bombs. There was potus that were hastily put on women to pretend they were married because they thought the soldiers wouldn't take them if they were married. All of this against the empire's complete moral bankruptcy. No, that nobody was going to do anything. Nobody's doing anything now. And they were then. And so then I think it was a reckoning for me, right? Like, how could I possibly engage in these worlds of the NGO and the policy and the State Department that had just left the Tamils to die? And that's what I was being groomed to do, was to be in that world. And when I challenged it, that's to me when I started to see, like when we talk about this moment right now, it's important to say there's people who separate, you know, there's a far right and there's an attack on women a lot, right? This is actually the same agenda. They are agendas for dominance over resources, over reproduction, over bodies. It is an agenda of a desire for dominance. It's the same agenda. We cannot separate women from what's happening in the autocracy, right? And so once I started to see, when I said the word empowerment, which was created by the Global South, women in the Global South, and taken by the UN to cover their crimes against women, when I wrote a report on that, that's when the white feminists will turn on you, right? When Kanmani so very importantly points out that International Women's Day was anchored in socialism. It is not meant to cover the agendas of an empire trying to bomb Iran or anywhere else, right? It was recognizing the captivity of language, like the word disappeared, all this elevation of mothers that disappeared. Nobody is disappeared. People are abducted or killed. Even that language was attached to the women to make their political agenda softer, right? If I wrote about why women chose violence, the New York Review of Books would say she's fetishizing violence. I remember Sandra, a member of the FARC, would say to me, okay, so if a soldier comes at me with a gun, women should respond with what? A Bible, a book, kindness. You know, so this was all how I started to learn the restrictions and how we talk about women here and how they need to see women and are calculatedly constructing women so that they can follow the agendas of the empire. So I think the work now is a new battlefield that builds on what we inherited, and we inherited a lot, particularly in the Alam Tamil struggle. We inherited a lot. The question is, how do we reclaim memory? How do we reclaim space, which may only be imaginative space right now? It may be art and writing, and that's the terrain that we're working with, right? But that's going to settle back into land eventually. We're going to come back to the homeland with that. I remember on May 18th, which was the genocide remembrance, there was a story, an activist, Anishani, told me that there was this woman who was Tamil woman who was ladling out the kanji, the boiled rice that they used to eat at the end of the war to everybody. And there was an intelligence officer who was standing around. It's their territory, it's military occupation. This kind of intimate moment for him to intimidate her. And she demands that he goes to the closest shop to get incense and a matchbox. And he's kind of confused and maybe returning to childlike cultural obedience. He obliges. And when he returns, she takes the materials and lights the lamp for those martyred by his army for the cause right in front of him. And he reminds her that he's a government agent. She says, I don't care who you are. If you're standing around, you make yourself useful. And for me, it was just this beautiful moment of thinking, yes, her land was taken, but for now, she commands this tiny territory, right? And I think that's part of the work right now, is to look for those smaller territories and places that we didn't see, that women are actually taking control. And so now my recent book is on occupation in the body, because I've sort of started to think about how politics happens in the body. And in Northern, you know, if you read from the body, state violence is always gendered, and gendered-based violence is always political, right? And to center injure from the intimate terrain of the body locates these deeper impulses towards liberation. What I mean by that is, if I'm in Northern Sri Lanka, as I was last year, and there's soldiers, my kid is fishing somewhere, there's no fish anywhere, but he's fishing, and an army truck with soldiers is crossing, and they're shouting lewd gestures at me, you know, in the occupier's language, your shoulders are going to go like this, right? You're going to go concave and try and flatten into safety, right? I remember going through the local papers, thinning archives earlier that year, and reading about these Tamil women and these Tamil girls who would fold their limbs into these sand bunkers, right? So all of us are collapsing into some kind of safety. You're collapsing the body, right? The space demand compression and the body complies. This should not be a child's pose inside of a bunker, right? If I ask a former fighter about self-determination, she clutches here and says, this is everything to me. When you ask about the refugee camps and where they were, they'll trace with their finger, this is where I was, this is where the military was. And the sand will collapse in between the two, showing how vulnerable they were. in that moment, right? But the body is telling the story of what happened, what politics is, and they're moving from the body. So I think I'll just close by saying, like, you know, there is in our community, and I think in Indian Tamils as well, a question about what it is to be Tamil. No? And I want to say to young folks, like, it's not how well you speak the language, how many times you've been there, who you married, if you married. Tamil is in the too long conversation in your house about the kind of shrimp that's best for curry. It's in the dark cutting humor. It's in the internal moral voice that's too loud to silence. It's in an intense intellectualism that's drawn to literature and poetry. And if you're looking for markers of Tamil women, you don't have to look that hard, you know? It's in your own, you know, it's there. Everything is there that you're looking for. And I think there is, working on that island now, working in Ulam, this new generation of kids of the struggle, who are organizing, who are doing writing groups, who are having cricket matches for their friends to raise money and blood drives. This is the next generation. There's a changing of the guard of the struggle, and it's a mixed men and women equally. And so I think if you center gender from 20 years ago to now, I believe it reorients your view to see power in new places. The state will always be nearsighted, and it believes power shrinks in the distance from the capital. But the farthest from the state are the places where we're building a critical mass now. And I've seen it in the US, and I've seen it in Ireland. And we return to the community, which is why I think we're here today, hoping to bring some political life back into each of our struggles.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gowrinathan, for your words. I really, really appreciated what you said about what it means to be Tamil. And I think it brings forward questions for me that I've experienced even in like my very young fledgling career about what it means to be Tamil, what it means to be an activist, and what it means to do people-centered work. I study, like my major is called government, but you know, learning more and more about the government and the US government and going to the UN for the first time. I remember going with the United States Tamil Action Group and hearing US diplomats describe the Liberation Tamil Tigers, Elam, as terrorists and being shocked and seeing the way resistance is described in different ways. So thank you for your 20 years working on the resistance struggle and for spreading knowledge about Tamil women and their resistance. It's much appreciated. And yes, thank you again. If anyone has any questions for Dr. Gowrinathan, again, the question and answer section will be at the end of this event. But our next speaker right now is Jeeva Muhil, and I'm very excited to hear her speak. Because I think in Tamil culture and in South Asian culture broadly, we talk a lot about community, but I think it's very important to reflect on what that means in the context of labor and organizing spaces, and how it comes down to solidarity. So Jeeva Muhil is a labor organizer. She previously worked as a researcher for the Service Employees International Union, which is one of the largest and most powerful workers' unions in the country, and it represents thousands of building service workers. She's also a former shop steward at United Pier 274. And Muhil originally became involved in the global solidarity movement through her work with the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance. And we're so excited to hear you speak. Thank you.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm incredibly honored to be a part of this. I think there are so many different things that come up when we talk about Tamil women and organizing, and I think the people that I learned how to fight from were often Tamil women and like our diaspora community here. I guess to give folks a little bit of background, so I got started with the like union and labor movement in college while I was working in the dining halls, and I knew both union workers who were working in the dining halls and also temp workers, right, who were coming in and being paid about, I think, $7.84 or something in an hour back in that time, and working 5-hour shifts. And I could see the really stark difference in how those folks were treated and the voice they had at work, right? And also who the temp workers were, who was considered disposable, right? Was mostly women, was mostly immigrants, was mostly Black folks, right? And then when I graduated and started working in the Philadelphia airport, I was a bartender. I was lucky to be in a union shop, a restaurant that had a union contract, and where there had been folks who had fought for the members and my coworkers to have union representation. But it was also clear the difference between what is on paper and what is real and active and shapes your life in the workplace every day, right? We had a lot of protections that were very much on paper, but did not have, were not real in real life in the restaurant every day, right? And I soon learned that my female coworkers were the ones that I could go to about, like, we were the only ones who were able to protect each other, especially when it came to gender-based violence and harassment at work, from coworkers to customers, right? And even as somebody who came in as a union member, that's when I got involved in the union movement, because I was like, without this, I feel helpless, and I don't want to be helpless again, right? And we had been fighting for several years for increased raises, increased health insurance, just a lot of important standard setting about raising the bar for all workers in the airport, but also about, you know, the things that make people able to be free of medical debt and get the care they need and take care of their families. And we were signing folks up on a one-day strike. And then in 2020, all of us were laid off. We had folks signed up on a one-day strike, and then that week itself, we were all laid off because of the COVID pandemic. And I started working with the union unemployment hotline because all of us were simultaneously applying for unemployment, which was very difficult in my state with a very relatively well-funded unemployment office. It was also incredibly difficult to do if you did not speak English as a first language, if you were not a citizen, if you were navigating unemployment with anything but American citizenship, essentially. And I think as a part of the work there, just like being a part of helping folks apply for unemployment and like trying to connect people to resources as much as possible through this union operated thing, I learned a lot about the difference between what feels like organizing and community services, right? And they're both incredibly important. And providing services to a community is incredibly important and makes a huge difference in people's lives. It also does not feel the same, right? It felt like I was constantly having to tell people what didn't exist for them, right? That nobody had provided what they needed, and that like we had to make a plan to fight for it together, right? And so after that, I was lucky enough to work with the Building Services and Janitors Union, SEIU 32BJ, especially with like workers across school districts, across office buildings, across government buildings, right? I think there is a huge stigma across Indian culture in general and across a lot of different immigrant cultures against people who work with their hands, right? it's traditionally like assigned to folks who are marginalized in society, who are like considered backward castes, or who are considered to be disposable. But I think there is like a very deliberate erasure of them and the essential like nature of their work, right? If you look back at the COVID pandemic, the people keeping society running were sanitation workers, right? Were nurses, were teachers, were folks working in grocery stores. And in the like aftermath of any environmental, climate disaster, infrastructure failure, the folks they bring in are particularly specifically sanitation workers, our janitors, our home care nurses, right? These are our emergency response folks, and these are the people currently being targeted and kidnapped and abducted by our current government, you know. So many of the folks that we're losing right now are not just like incredibly important community members, they're also essential workers. And it's a testament to the way our government and like power are able to reshape narratives to portray these workers as the people living off of or parasiting on our economy and our community, right? Even as known sexual predators, as war profiteers, as white collar criminals, as polluters escape accountability. I got involved with the global solidarity movement through the Asia Pacific American Labor Alliance and was like lucky enough to meet union leaders from all over Asia and to work with organizations who were fighting against American corporate extraction and American foreign policy across the world, right? As Dr. Gowrinathan, I hope I'm saying that right, I'm so sorry, mentioned, right, this is a moment where we have to talk about genocide, and not just the genocide that our people have experienced, but also the genocide that's happening right now. It is often like when people come to the US and experience racism, and this is true for Tamil communities and also other communities, they tend to go back to a very conservative idea of what they think the culture is. And there's a huge resilience, right, in the communities that our people build, in the structures we build to support each other, take care of each other. There's often also a very big oversimplification of the experiences and culture, like facing Tamil women, for example, right? Very few of us learn about how, you know, Tamil sanitation workers, who are mostly women, are like fighting on strike, or the movement of like, you know, South Indian women running their own co-ops, the different struggles of women who were part of the armed resistance in Sri Lanka. I really could go on, and I'm sure there are more and more examples that I don't know, right? And then often when young women come up as second generation in the diaspora, they don't have these references, right? And so it feels like they have to break through their own culture to do the work that they want to do, even when they have sisters and they have past examples and strength to draw on. But I think there's a real alienation there. And I think that global solidarity, is a way to have working class communities fight for each other together without having to go through the medium of governments and NGOs and international institutions that will frequently sell out one or both of our communities for their own interests and to preserve their own structure and their own access to the people in power. I think the labor movement is the strongest example of it. I think there are 1,000 different things I could say about the flaws of the labor movement and the US labor movement in particular, very specifically. I'm happy to talk about them. But I also think that this is where working people have historically fought together and won the strongest things. A lot of the social programs like SNAP, like unemployment, like women's support for single mothers, like contraceptive access. These are not just like programs that existed. These are programs that unions and specifically union women fought for, because these are all family issues. They're just things that only women care enough about to fight for. Daycare is a family issue, right? Contraceptive access is a family economic problem. Beyond the issues of bodily autonomy, which I think women and queer and non-binary folks have always led, right? To say this is something that we have a right to. We are not common property. And there is more to us than our ability to reproduce or not, and to enter heterosexual marriage or not, right? And when we erase like the history of the rebels and the current rebels in India, in Sri Lanka, and all the Tamil women and like non-binary folks fighting, we do a huge disservice to the progress that was already made, to like the depth of our movement and what we can learn, and to like, we narrow our own arguments, right? Like, I think in the US, we've allowed like the right to reproductive choices to become a conversation exclusively about abortion and about the existence of children or lack thereof, right? In a way that really narrows down the fact that women should have, and everybody should have, the right to their own body, to their own economic choices, to their own autonomy at a base level. That's just a core right that people have fought for in the past and that women fought for in the past. I was looking at the laundry worker strike in New York in like 1930s to 1940s. And one of the leaders from that strike, who was a Black woman, who was pushed out of her union for trying to fight, for trying to change it, and trying to address their internal sexism and their internal racism and their willingness to overlook those things from the boss. And she proposed like the right to abortion and to right to terminate an unwanted pregnancy as a civil right in 1957 as an official delegate, you know? I think we often, I wish I had known about her growing up, I think, or in like my early days of the union. I was like, wow, we've been letting them get away with so much stuff, because I was like, oh, this is new cultural, this is new for people, they're adjusting, etc. And I was like, no, people have been trying to do this for minimum 50 years. Definitely longer, but minimum 50 years. And actually, y'all have just been unable to grow. It's not that nobody tried. I don't know why we've been trying to meet you so much halfway, if you, over 50 years of this fight, have refused to grow from the leadership side, despite the fact that it is clear that purging your movements of communists, of feminists, of anybody on the leftist side will kill them. Like, people in the 40s and the 50s at different points in time have tried to like kick out the people who will not be acceptable to the power structures in order to maintain access. We saw that in the union movement in the US. They kicked out all of the communists, all of the queers, right? All of the unrespectable people. And it did not save them from outsourcing. It did not save them from the manufacturing automation. It did not make the union stronger, and they lost all of their momentum and the growth. And we need to realize that now. Project 2025, right, which is the blueprints of Trump's his second term in office. They are the people who wrote a plan to dismantle US movement organizations by starting with the Palestinian organizations, because they said, if the left won't bother to defend the pro-Palestinians, we can keep going, right? Until all anti-capitalist organizations can be like feasibly portrayed as enemies of the state, essentially. They're also the people who published The War on Family, who are trying to attack like no-fault divorce and contraceptive access and things that people have fought and died for years, right? And I don't think we can go back, and I don't think we can rely on any government to help us find the way there, right? In Tamil Nadu, after a 21-year-old union member in one of the factories at an Eastman factory was murdered by her supervisor, her union and her family came together and fought for something that's called the Dindigul Agreement, which essentially is a worker-led way to enforce and hold workers accountable for gender-based violence and harassment. So it gives basically at every line of production, there is a woman worker who is like trained in handling grievances about gender-based violence and harassment that any member on that production line can bring a complaint to. And they meet with the supervisor. If it's not resolved at that level, there's an investigation team where they look into what happened, what the needed resolution is. And then if they don't resolve it at that level, it goes to an oversight committee that the brand, the contractor, and the union sit on. And the brands commit to cutting off sourcing if the needed solution isn't implemented. And I think the Dindigul Agreement, which is what it's called, they've won expansions of that and several in Indonesia as well. Great. Indonesia as well is a revolutionary agreement, is coming out of a history of Tamil women organizing. I was lucky enough to meet the TTCU, the Tamil Nadu Textile Workers Union, and they are folks who are also organizing against domestic violence in their communities. They go, and when there's a domestic violence fight happening, the women will go and surround the fight as it is happening. Right? They come and bring a delegation of people to make sure that they are not getting attacked. And also they make sure that the person who is being abused can't be blamed for calling them, essentially. There's so much I'm excited to learn from them. And I have learned so much already from the beginning of this webinar. I'm excited to hear from the rest of our panelists and really appreciate y'all time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeeva. Again, I really appreciate you talking about labor and unions, because even in college, I don't think it's something that's ever even been brought up to me until now. I'm taking an Asian American labor history class, and this is the first time I'm learning about labor and how Asian Americans are involved and the connection. And I think it's really important for us all to remember what Jeeva said before about labor rights and the labor movement and how that corresponds to civil rights. And so the labor movement really is a funnel for democracy for all and for women in specific, and it's directly interconnected with women's rights. And I think, as she was saying, I think growing up, a lot of the stories we hear about bravery is something we think of needing to find like alone on our own, but it's actually something we find in community. And it's important to remember to be inclusive in a time, again, where immigration is coming under attack, and also with things like Project 2025, and remember that division only fosters more division, and that your community doesn't have to be filled with so-called perfect people. So thank you again so much for all your words. And if you have any questions for her, you can ask after our final speaker. And so our final speaker is Dr. K. Kalimadi. And Dr. K. Kalimadi was born in Malaysia, and she was raised speaking Tamil before any other language. She says she was shaped by the legacy of her father, the beloved poet and educator Kavimani Kaliyapperumal, who was honored with the title Tamil Kuyil, or the Nightingale of Tamil. And it was bestowed by Bharathidasan himself. And so we're so thankful for her for being here. And she carried that legacy across oceans. She earned her bachelor's and master's of science from the University of Malaysia, her PhD in microbiology and immunology from the University of Tennessee, and went on to become the first Malaysian Tamil woman to hold a full professorship at Florida International University in Miami. She built her entire scientific career in America and did not set foot on Indian soil until she was 34 years old. So Tamil was never geography for her, it was blood, and it was her father's voice. Her scientific achievements are staggering, with over 160 peer-reviewed publications, 5 patents, and 150 invited lectures worldwide. She's a global authority on antimicrobial resistance and microbiome science. She served as the first international co-editor-in-chief in the 50-year history of the Journal of Medical Microbiology. She's a fellow of the American Academy of Microbiology. And she's a fellow and trustee of the Royal Society of Biology UK, and served as the first international trustee of the Microbiology Society UK, founded in 1945. Still, even with all these achievements in the scientific field, she never let go of Tamil. She organized Tamil events, translated scientific texts into Tamil, contributed Tamil scientific vocabulary to the Tamil Nadu Government Lexicon Project. In January 2025, she founded the Tamil and Tamilar Diaspora Research Institute, also known as TTDRI, the first institution of its kind dedicated to the academic study, preservation, and global promotion of Tamil language, literature, and heritage. She's also chief strategist at Eularis, an AI-powered platform working to make Tamil education accessible worldwide. She's currently completing her own BA in Tamil. She composes original Tamil poetry, and she teaches as her father taught. So the Tamil world has already taken notice. She has received the Valar Tamil Mamani Award from the International Academy of Tamil Language and Culture in Chennai, and the crown jewel of the World Tamilar Award at the 9th World Tamil Economic Conference in Dubai in 2023. She's a bridge between the ancient world of Tamil civilization and the frontiers of 21st century science. So with that, please welcome Professor Dr. K. Kalimadi.
That was a lot. I was hoping you will shrink it a little bit. Thank you so very much for the introduction, Kanmani. First of all, congratulations to the speakers who went before me. I have to say, I am coming from completely in a left field from what you have both spoke. I very much identify with your cause. So I certainly we can talk about it, that part of my life. But I'm here and today to talk about how I got here, more or less. And I'm going to speak in Tamil. My apologies. But I hope I can, I don't used to, I can be, that you can follow what I'm trying to say, okay? I appreciate that. Though I've been here many years, over 40 years in this country, I relearn Tamil, and I've been actually very proud of that. I'm going, but let's get there. Okay, with that, என்னை இங்க அறிமுகப்படுத்திய செல்வி கண்மணிக்கு நன்றி. என்னை இந்த மேடைக்கு அழைத்தமைக்கு தம்பி துரைக்கண்ணனுக்கு என் மனமார்ந்த நன்றி. இங்கு கூடியிருக்கும் அவையோர் அனைவருக்கும் நற்றமிழ் சுவை வணக்கம். இன்று நான் உங்களிடம் சொல்ல போவது ஒரு சான்றிதழின் கதையை சொல்ல போவதில்லை, ஒரு வாழ்க்கை வரலாறையும் சொல்ல போவதில்லை. இன்று நான் உங்களிடம் ஒரு கனவின் கதையை சொல்ல போகிறேன். 15 வயது மலேசிய தமிழ் பெண்ணின் கனவு. ஒரு தமிழ் பள்ளி ஆசிரியரின் மகள், தமிழ் பள்ளியில் படித்தவள், யாரும் மேல்நிலை பள்ளியை கூட முடிக்காத குடும்பத்தில் பிறந்தவள், அதுவும் தமிழ் பள்ளியில் படித்தால் முன்னேற முடியாது என்ற சமூக கருத்து சூழலில் வளர்ந்தவர். அந்த வயதில் நான் என்னுள் சொன்னேன், ஒரு நல்ல விஞ்ஞானியாக, அதாவது உலகம் போற்றும் விஞ்ஞானியாக நான் வர வேண்டும் என்று ஒரு முடிவு எடுத்தேன். அந்த முடிவு யாரும் என்று சொல்லல, நானே எடுத்துக்கிட்ட ஒரு திட்டம். உலகத்திற்கு வேறு திட்டம் இருந்தது. ஏன்னா கூட சுற்றிருந்த அனைவரும் படிப்பில் என்ன பயன், கல்யாணமாகிவிடும், நீ கணவரோட போயிருப்ப, வீட்டுக்கு சாப்பாடு போட மாட்டீங்க, இந்த மாதிரி பல கேள்விகள். உனக்கு பட்ட படிப்பு எதற்கு, உங்க குடும்பத்தில் அவ்வளவு காசு கிடையாது, அதையும் யோசிக்க வேண்டும் அப்படின்னு நிறைய கேள்விகள். நான் என் பெற்றோர்களில் சொல்லாமல் மலாயா பல்கலைக்கழகத்தில் சேர்ந்தேன். கேட்கவில்லை அவர்களிடம். ஏன், என்னவாக இருக்கும் என்று நீங்கள் நினைக்கின்றீர்கள்? நீ வளர்ந்தது பணம் இல்லாத குடும்பத்தில், உன்னை சேர்ந்த 5 சகோதர சகோதரிகள், நான் 2வது. இதையெல்லாம் கேட்கும்போது நான் கேட்காமலே யாரிடமும் அட்மிட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன், யாரிடம் அனுமதி கேட்காமல் நான் பல்கலைக்கழகத்துக்கு மன அளித்தேன். இடம் கிடைத்தது, போய் படித்தேன். முதுகலையும் படித்தேன். முதுகலை போகும்போதும் யாருக்கிட்டையும் நான் நான் படிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு கேட்கல. ஆனா படிக்கும்போது என்ன பிரச்சனை? பண பிரச்சனை. உனக்கு எங்க இருந்து பணம் வரும்? அப்ப அந்த பிரச்சனைன்னு வரும்போது நம்ம முக்கியமா என்ன செய்யணும் அப்படின்னா, நான் வேலைகள் செய்தேன். வீட்டு வேலைக்காரியா இருந்தேன், குழந்தைகளை பார்த்துக்கிட்டேன். ஓகே, அப்போ ஒரு குறள் தான் நினைப்பு வரும். அந்த குறள் என்னன்னா, அருமை உடைத்தென்று அசாவாமை வேண்டும், பெருமை முயற்சி தரும். அப்படின்னா முக்கியமா என்ன அர்த்தம்னா, என்ன முயற்சி எடுத்தாலும் கவலைப்படாம எடுக்கணும். முயற்சி செய்தானா உன்னால முடியும், முயற்சி செய்யலைன்னா உன்னால கரை சேர முடியாதுன்னு. அதே சமயத்துல நான் இருந்த நிலையில எனக்கு என்னன்னா, நாங்க இருந்த இடம், தங்கி இருந்த வாழ்ந்த இடம்லாம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, அந்த இடத்துல இருந்து நான் எப்படி வெளியாகிறது, எப்படி முன்னுக்கு வர்றதுன்னா, எனக்கு முக்கியமா தெரிஞ்சது கல்வி. கல்வியால் கரை சேர்வேன், கல்வியால் கரை சேர்வோம் என்ற ஒரே ஒரு நம்பிக்கையிலே படித்தேன், படித்துக் கொண்டே இருந்தேன், இன்னும் படித்துக் கொண்டே இருக்கிறேன். அதற்கு பிறகு மேலும் ஒரு விஞ்ஞானி ஆக வேண்டும் என்னால் எந்த நாட்டுக்கு போக வேண்டும் என்று யோசித்ததில் அமெரிக்கா போகணும் அப்படின்னு முடிவெடுத்தேன். எழுதி போட்டேன். எனக்கு ஸ்காலர்ஷிப்போட வந்தது, டென்னசியிலிருந்து, மெம்பிஸ் டென்னசியிலிருந்து. இப்ப என்ன தடைன்னு நினைக்கிறீங்க? யாரு பயண சீட்டு வாங்க போறோம்? கையில பணம் கிடையாது, வீட்டு வேலைக்காரியாக இருக்கிறேன், முதுகலை படித்திருக்கிறேன். அப்பொழுது நான் கேட்டது என்னன்னா, நிறைய கதவுகளை தட்டினேன், ஆனால் ஒரு கதவும் திறக்கவில்லை. கடைசியில் எனக்கு எஜமானாக இருந்த டாக்டர் கிருஷ்ணன்ட்டு போயிட்டு, எனக்கு கடன் கொடுங்க, நான் போய் சம்பாரிச்சு திருப்பி தந்துடுறேன்ட்டு அவர்கிட்டேருந்து கடன் வாங்கி டிக்கெட் வாங்கி அமெரிக்கா வந்தேன். ஏன்னா அமெரிக்காவில் ஸ்காலர்ஷிப் இருந்ததுனால மாதம் மாதம் வருமானம் இருந்தது. ஸோ அப்பயும் கூட அந்த வருமானம் பத்தாக்குறையினால ரெஸ்டாரண்ட்ல வேலை செஞ்சேன். இருப்பினும் படிப்பு கல்விதான் உனக்கு கை கொடுக்கும் என்று நினைத்து விட்டு அதை எதுவும் கைவிடக்கூடாதுன்னு படித்து கொண்டிருந்தேன். நான் வாழ்க்கையில் முன்னேறும் ஒவ்வொரு அடியிலும் ஒரு தடை காத்திருந்தது. வறுமை மட்டுமல்ல, மக்கள் என்னை பார்த்து என்ன சொன்னார்கள் தெரியுமா? நான் அழகாக இருப்பதால் புத்திசாலியாக இருக்க மாட்டேன். ஏன்னா அறிவும் ஒரு தமிழ் பெண்ணின் முகமும் ஒரே நேரத்தில் இருக்க முடியாது என்பது போல் நான் ஆய்வகங்களில், மாநாட்டு அரங்குகளில், ஆசிரியர் குழுக்களில், என்னை போல் ஒருவரை வாழ்க்கையில் பார்த்திராத நிறுவனங்களில், நடைபாதைகளில், எல்லா இடங்களிலும் குறைத்து மதிக்கப்பட்டிருக்கின்றேன். அங்கே தவறாக வந்து விட்டாலோ அப்படின்னு யோசிக்கிறவங்களாம் நிறைய பேர் இருந்தாங்க. சொற்களில் கேட்டிருக்கிறேன். அதைவிட அதிகமாக அமைதியில் உணர்ந்திருக்கிறேன். நான் நுழைந்த போது அறை மாறும் விதத்தில், என் யோசனைகள் வேறொருவருக்கு பெயர் மாற்றப்படும் விதத்தில். அப்பொழுது நினைத்தேன், என்னை 2 மடங்காக தயாராக, 2 மடங்கு துல்லியமாக மறுக்க முடியாதவளாக இருக்க வேண்டும் கட்டாயத்தில். You all know this. You have to be twice as good to get half as much credit. Right? So that's exactly what I was focused on. They will never, ever question my credentials. Okay? And that's why I said I will get my PhD and nobody will ever question my credentials. இதிலிருந்து நான் கற்றுக்கொண்டது உங்களுக்கு சொல்கிறேன். தடைகள் நிறுத்தும் பலைகள் அல்ல, அவை கேள்விகள். அவை உங்களை தீக்கி உயர வைக்கும் ஒரு கற்கு. அதாவது இட்ஸ் a stepping stone for the next level. It's not, it's blocking. Okay? So ஒவ்வொரு முறையும் அதுக்கு தேர்ந்தெடுத்தது பதில் என்னன்னா, சூரியனை நோக்கி நிலாவை நோக்கி நடந்தால் நிலாவில் தரை இறங்கலாம். தேங்காய் மரத்தை நோக்கி நடந்தால் நீங்க எங்கே தரையிறங்கி வருகிறார்? You aim for the sun or aim for the moon, you may land on the moon. But if you aim for the moon, you may land on the coconut tree. If you aim just for the top of the coconut tree, you know where you're going to land. So aim higher whenever you can. நட்சத்திரங்களை நோக்கி பாருங்கள். Look at the stars. Even if it falls, even if you fall, you'll fall within the stars. Okay? So என்னை வரையறுப்பவர்களை நான் ஒருபோதும் அனுப்பதில்லை. Basically, I don't let people define who I am. Okay? இது என்னோட முக்கிய காரணி. நான் இல்லை என்ற பதிலை ஒருபோதும் ஏற்றுக்கொள்வதில்லை. காரணம், விளக்கப்படாத வரை பகுத்தறிவு இல்லாத இல்லை என்பது முடிவே இல்லை, இன்னும் திறக்காத கதவு மட்டுமே. என் பாலினத்தால் என்னை யாரும் வரையறுக்க அனுமதித்தில்லை. என் தோல் நிறத்தால் என்னை யாரும் குறைத்து மதிப்பிட அனுமதித்தில்லை. நான் நுழைந்த அறைகளில் தொடர்ந்து நிலைத்திருக்கிறேன், பேசினேன், என் இருப்பை நிரூபித்தேன். என்னை யாரும் வரையறுக்க முடியாது. என் பாலினத்தால் அல்ல, என் நிறத்தால் அல்ல, என் கடவுச்சீட்டால் அல்ல, என் உச்சரிப்பால் அல்ல. என்னிடம் முனைவர் பட்டம் உண்டு, பொது சுகாரத்தில் முதுகலை உண்டு, உலகின் மிக மதிப்புமிக்க 2 அறிவியல் கழகங்களின் உறுப்பினர் என்ற பெருமை உண்டு. இப்போது என் வாழ்க்கையின் இந்த கட்டத்தில் நான் தமிழில் இளங்கலை படித்து வருகிறேன். ஏனென்றால் தமிழ் மேல் என் ஆழமான கவனம் தேவை. என் தந்தை இந்த முழுக்காக தன் வாழ்க்கையை அர்ப்பணித்தார். நான் அதை கவனமாக கையாள வேண்டும். நம் நாகரீகத்தின் மிகப்பெரிய செல்வத்தை ஏந்தி செல்ல உரிமை பெற வேண்டும். அதை நான் உழைத்து சம்பாதிக்க வேண்டும். பெருமையாக சொல்கிறேன், எனது இளங்கலை தமிழ் பட்டத்தை நான் நிறைவு பருவ தேர்வில் இருக்கிறேன். இன்னொரு சில மாதங்களில் அந்த பட்டத்தை 2 கைகளாலும் ஏந்திக் கொள்வேன். ஆன்ம திருப்தி அடைவேன். இது என்னிடம் உள்ள எல்லாவற்றையும் கொண்டு சம்பாதித்த பட்டம் என்று, எனது தந்தையின் நிறைவான ஆசைகளுடன் பெற்ற பட்டம் என்று. என் பெற்றோர் மேல்நிலை பள்ளி கல்வியை முடிக்கவில்லை. நான் ஒரு பெரிய அமெரிக்க பல்கலைக்கழகத்தில் பேராசிரியரானேன். கண்மணி சொன்னது போல் 160க்கு மேலான கட்டுரைகள், காப்புரிமைகள் பல நாடுகளில் இருந்து ஆராய்ச்சிக்கு அழைப்புகள் ஆராய்ச்சியாளர்களுக்கு வழிகாட்டினேன். என்னிடம் துல்லியமான புள்ளி விவரம் இல்லை. ஆனால் ஒன்று சொல்கிறேன், நான் தேடினேன். அமெரிக்க ஆராய்ச்சி பல்கலைக்கழகத்தில் முழு பேராசிரியர் ஆன மற்றொரு மலேசிய தமிழ் பெண் என்னிடம் தெரியவில்லை. ஒருவர் கூட கிடையாது. ஒருவேளை எங்காவது இருக்கலாம், நான் இன்னும் கண்டுபிடிக்கவில்லை. ஆனால் அவர் இருந்தால் அவரை சந்திக்க விரும்புகிறேன். ஏனென்றால் நாங்கள் ஒருவரை ஒருவர் அறிந்திருக்க அவா கொள்கிறேன். இதை பெருமை மிகுதியில் சொல்லவில்லை. இப்போது இந்த அரங்கில் ஒரு இடத்தில் அமர்ந்திருக்கும் ஒரு பெண் இருக்கிறாள். யாரோ அவளுக்கு சொன்னார்கள், கனவு மிகவும் குறுகியது, மிகவும் சாத்தியமற்றது, மிகவும் தூரத்தில் உள்ளது என்று. அவள் கேட்கட்டும். பாதையில் நடப்பதற்கு முன்பே வரைபடம் இருக்க வேண்டியதில்லை. I never had a role model. சில நேரங்களில் நீயே வரைபடம். We are our own role models. என்னுடைய இளைய சகோதரன் இப்போது அமெரிக்காவில் பேராசிரியர். என் சகோதரி மற்றும் சகோதரியின் குழந்தைகள் வழக்கறிஞர்களாகவும் மருத்துவர்களாகவும் பேராசிரியர்களாகவும் பணிபுரிகின்றனர். நான் வழி நடக்கவில்லை, வழியை வகுத்தேன். பலர் பின்தொடர்ந்தனர். என்னை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் நான் இப்போது வழி வகுக்கிறது உங்களை போன்ற இளைஞர்களுக்கு. I want to open the doors for the next generation in science, in any field. பிறகு வந்தது என் வாழ்நாள் முழுவதும் உழைத்தது நான் பெற்ற உன்னத தருணம். இந்த அகாடமியின் மெம்பராக தேர்ந்தெடுக்கப்பட்டேன். தேர்ந்தெடுக்க போது அந்த லிஸ்ட்ல பார்த்தா தமிழ் பெண்கள் யாருமே கிடையாது எங்களுக்கு முன்னால. ஆனா நான் தேர்ந்தெடுத்த வருடம் 2 தமிழ் பெண்கள், நானும் இன்னொரு தமிழ் பெண்ணும் சென்னையில அவங்க யூகேல இருக்காங்க. பூர்வீகம் சென்னை. உலகில் சிறந்த விஞ்ஞானிகளில் தேர்வு செய்யப்பட்ட குழுவில் இருந்தோம். அதனால் உலகுக்கு நாங்கள் தெரிந்தோம். We are seen, we are recognized for our contribution, right? நாம் எப்போதுமே இருக்கிறோம் தான், ஆனால் அப்பப்போ சொல்லி காட்ட வேண்டிய வகையில் இருக்கிறோம். Here we are. And the only way for them to take note is to go where nobody dares to go. Open the new frontier. Okay. I was lost at this point. என்ன செய்வது என்று தெரியல. 30 ஆண்டுகள் ஏறினேன், உயரத்தை அடைந்தேன், சுற்றி பார்த்தேன். இனி என்ன தொடர்வது? எனக்கு குழந்தைகள் கிடையாது. இந்த கேள்வியுடன் ஒரே போராட்டம். என் மரபு என்ன? கடவுள் என்னை ஏன் இந்த பூமியில் நடக்க வைத்தார்? மனித குலத்திற்கு என் பங்களிப்பு என்ன? I really did not know what my next journey is going to be. Okay. கிட்டத்தட்ட 2 ஆண்டுகள் இந்த கேள்வியுடன் போராடினேன். என் சொந்த துறையை நான் ஆராய்ச்சி பார்க்கும்போது என்னுடைய அறிவியல் துறை முழுமையாக ஒரு மேல்நாட்டவர்களுக்கான ஒரு நோயை பற்றிய நிறைய ஆராய்ச்சி செய்தேன். சரி, உலக சுகாதாரத்துக்காக நான் ஆராய்ச்சி செய்யணும்ட்டு நினைத்து சிலர் கேட்டாங்க, நீ ஒரு பெஞ்ச் சயின்டிஸ்ட், வாட் டு யூ நோ அபவுட் பப்ளிக் ஹெல்த்னு. போயிட்டு MPH பண்ணப்பதான் இன் குளோபல் ஹெல்த் பாலிசி அண்ட் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட். ஓகே, ஈவன் வித் தட் ஏதோ ஒரு குரல், நீ ஒன்னும் உன்னுடைய பாதையை கண்டுபிடிக்கல அப்படின்னு கேட்கும்போது அந்த குரல் எங்க அப்பா வடிவில் வந்தது. எங்க அப்பா வடிவில் எதிரொலித்தது. எங்க அப்பா தமிழுக்காக வாழ்க்கை அர்ப்பணித்தவர், வள்ளலாரின் பாதையில் வழி நடந்தவர், அன்பில் பக்தியில் சேவையில் உயர்ந்தவர். 2011 நம்மை விட்டு சென்றார். அவர் போனதற்கு பிறகுதான் அவர் சுமந்தது என்ன என்று உண்மையாக புரிந்தது. தமிழின் மீதான அவர் அன்பு கலாச்சார அலங்காரம் அல்ல, அது ஒரு ஆன்மாவின் பணி. உணர்ந்தேன், அவர் மகளாக பிறந்தேன் இந்த ஒரு காரணத்திற்குத்தான் என்பதை உணர்ந்தேன். இந்த தந்தையின் அடிச்சுவட்டில் நடக்க வேண்டும் என்று தொடர்ந்து தடம் பதிக்க வேண்டும் என்ன அதிகமாய் ஆழமாய் என்று. இப்போ நான் நிறுவனங்கள் எப்படி கட்டப்படுகின்றன என்று அறிந்த பெண் நுண்ணுயிரியல் துறையை நிறுவினேன். ஒரு மருத்துவக் கல்லூரியை முதலிலிருந்து கட்டுவதற்கு உதவினேன். 3 பட்ட மேற்படிப்பு திட்டங்களை உருவாக்கியுள்ளேன். அதற்கு என்ன தேவை, என்ன செலவாகும், என்ன வேறொன்றுவதற்கு முன்பு பல ஆண்டுகள் போராட்டம் என்று தெரியும். So you know, anything to start anything is a struggle. It takes time. Okay. And it's going to be a struggle for what I propose to do. So Tamil is spoken by many. There is no Tamil degree outside Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Singapore, and India. Okay. So I could not accept that. Okay. So அது கூட என்னால் ஏற்றுக்கொள்ள முடியல. பல ஆண்டுகள் அதை யோசித்து பலரிடம் பேசி இறுதியில் நான் ஒரு தனி நபராக இதை செய்ய வேண்டும் என்று முடிவெடுத்தேன். 2025 ஜனவரி 1ஆம் தேதி புத்தாண்டின் முதல் நாள், புதிய அத்தியாயத்தின் முதல் தொடக்கம். நான் தமிழ் மற்றும் தமிழர் புலம்பெயர் ஆய்வு நிறுவனத்தை மயாமியில் நிறுவினேன். So it's a Tamil and Tamilar Diaspora Research Institute, an independent institute in Miami. 3 months later, I formed Tamil and Tamil Diaspora Foundation as a 501c3 entity. It's mainly because we want to do both, not just focus on language, it's also focus on our culture and things. So Tamil மொழி அது தொன்மை, இலக்கியம், கலை, பண்பாடு ஆகியவற்றின் கல்வி ஆய்வு, பாதுகாப்பு, உலகளாவிய மேம்பாட்டிற்கு அர்ப்பணிக்கப்பட்டது. தமிழ்நாட்டின் கரைகளை தாண்டி, இலங்கையை தாண்டி, சிங்கப்பூரை தாண்டி உலக தமிழ் இதயங்கள் துடிக்கும் ஒவ்வொரு மூலையிலும் உயிரோட்டமாய் பாய்ந்தது. ஆனால் அது எப்படி தொடங்கியது என்று தெளிவாக கொஞ்சம் சொல்ல வேண்டும். நான் தனியாகவே தொடங்கினேன். ஒரு சக்கரத்தால் மட்டும், பாதை முழுவதும் எதிர்ப்பாளர்கள், நிறைந்த சாலையை கடக்கவே திணறும் ஒரு வண்டி போல. ஒரு பெண் என்ன செய்ய போகிறாள், இவளுக்கு எப்படி முடியும், தடைகள் மலை போல் இருக்கின்றனவே. அது என்னை தடுக்கவில்லை, என்னை இன்னும் உறுதிப்படுத்தியது. நிறுவனத்தை உருவாக்கினேன். என் சாத்தியமான நல்லவர்கள் என்ன சொன்னார்கள் தெரியுமா? 1 வருடம் கழித்து வாருங்கள், சில வெற்றிகளை காட்டுங்கள், அப்போது ஆதரவு பற்றி யோசிப்போம் என்று சொன்னார்கள். வாய் வழியாக ஆதரிப்பதாக சொன்ன சிலரோ என் தொலைபேசி அழைப்புகளையே புறக்கணிக்கின்றார்கள். Basically, they told me come back with some success, and those who said give me lip service now won't even pick up my phone, won't even respond to my calls. Okay. And I know I will have the last laugh. அப்போதுதான் தேடினேன். இந்த பயணத்தை முழுமையாக்க 3 பேரை கண்டுபிடித்தேன். திரு பாலா கண்ணன் கலிபோர்னியாவில் துணைத்தலைவர், அவரின் துணைத்தலைவராக, மருத்துவர் ரேவதி சேம்புலிங்கம் சென்னையில் என் துணைத் தலைவராக, முனைவர் நாகலிங்கம் பாண்டிச்சேரியில் என் துணைத் தலைவராக. அவர்கள் 3 பேரும் இளைஞர்கள். அவர்கள் ஆதாரம் கேட்கவில்லை, தொலைநோக்கை கண்டார்கள், என்னுடன் கை கோர்த்தார்கள். ஒரு சக்கரம் 4 ஆயிற்று. இப்போது வேகமாக செல்கிறோம், நிலையாக செல்கிறோம். இந்த வண்டி முதல் துறைமுகத்தை பத்திரமாக அடைவதை உறுதி செய்வதே என் இலக்கு. இன்னும் பல துறைமுகங்கள் முன்னே இருக்கின்றன, அவர்கள் எடுத்து செல்வர் என்று நம்புகிறேன். இது ஒரு ஆரம்பம் மட்டுமே. இட் இஸ் ஜஸ்ட் தி பிகினிங். நான் மலேசியாவில் பிறந்தேன், அமெரிக்காவில் வாழ்கிறேன். 34 வயதில் முதல் முறை இந்திய மண்ணில் தடம் பதித்தேன். ஆனால் தமிழ் என்று எனும் உணர்விலேயே எப்போதும் இருந்தேன். தமிழ் என்பது நீங்கள் பிறக்கும் இடம் அல்ல, தமிழ் என்பது உங்களில் பிறப்பது. இறுதியாக உங்களுக்கு விட்டு செல்கிறேன் என் சொந்த வார்த்தைகளில். கண்மணி சொன்ன மாதிரி 2 ஆண்டுகளா கவிதை எழுத ஆரம்பிச்சிருக்கு. I'm very proud that I can now write poems in Tamil. இந்த மொழிக்கான, இந்த சமூகத்திற்கான தம் தென்னை மரத்தின் அடியில் நின்று நிலாவை நோக்கி கனவு காணும் ஒவ்வொரு இளம் தமிழ் பெண்களுக்காக அன்னை தமிழை கடல் கடந்தேன், உலகின் விளிம்பை தொட்டேன், உன் வெண்கரங்கள் என்னை ஒரு நாளும் கைவிடவில்லை. உன் சொல் என் தந்தையின் எதிரொலி, உன் அன்பு என் தாயின் ஒளி. என் மக்களின் கண்களில் உன்னை தேடினேன், விண்ணிலும் மண்ணிலும் நீ இருந்தாய். அறிவியல் வழிகாட்டியது, தமிழ் எனக்கு உயிர் தந்தது. இரண்டும் சேர்ந்து எனக்கு ஆற்றலும் மன வலிமையும் தந்தன. இது என் பணி, என் பரம்பரைக்கு நான் தரும் கொடை. வாரீர் கேளீரே, யாதும் தமிழே, யாவரும் வாரே. I want to read the English version of it. So, oh Mother Tamil, I crossed oceans, I touched the edge of the sky. Your sacred hands never let me go. Your voice, the echo of my father. Your love, the echo, the light of my mother. I searched for you in my people's eyes, in the heavens and on this earth. You alone, you alone were there. Science showed me the way. Tamil gave me my life. Together they gave me strength and the will to go on. This is my mission. My gifts to those who come after me. Come, O my kin. Come, let us establish Tamil in the heart of the world. It's not enough for Tamils to say Tamil is great. We need others to say Tamil is great. And our goal is the institute is to teach Tamil to both who know and love Tamil, who wants to learn Tamil, and talk about Tamil in languages they understand, English and potentially other languages. Okay. With that, இன்பமே சொல்க, எல்லோரும் வாழ்க. நன்றி.
ரொம்ப நன்றி நீங்க சொன்னதுக்கு. தேங்க்யூ. அண்ட் நீங்க சொல்றதுக்கு மேல நானும் சொல்றேன், I think one of the biggest things that has like allowed me to be proud of Tamil and to say it in a way that other people understand is that Tamil is like the oldest living language in the world, and there's so much to be proud of with that, and I want it to exist forever. So I'm really thankful. And நீங்க எனது தமிழரா இருக்குதுன்னா என்னன்னு பத்தி சொன்னதுக்கு ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றி. டாக்டர் நிம்மி கௌரிநாதன் சொன்னதுக்கு அது பத்தி கொஞ்சம் பேசினாங்க. ஸோ நீங்க சொன்னது ரொம்ப அழகா இருந்தது. அண்ட் உங்க கவிதைக்கு நன்றி, உங்க கதைகளுக்கு நன்றி, உங்களோட கம்பீரம் அதை பத்திலாம் கேட்க ரொம்ப ரொம்ப இன்ஸ்பிரேஷனலா இருக்கு. ஸோ நன்றி. அண்ட் நீங்க சொன்ன அந்த ஒரு ஸ்பெசிபிக் கதை எனக்கு ரொம்ப நல்லா ஞாபகம் இருக்கு. நீங்க அழக பத்தி சொன்னீங்கல்ல, அழகு இல்லைன்னா என்னது புத்திசாலியா இருக்குது. எனக்கு ஞாபகம் இருக்கு, எனக்கு 12 வயசா இருக்கையில எனக்கு ஒரு தடவை நிறைய மனசுல ஸ்ட்ரெஸ் இருந்தது. நான் எதர் அழகா இருக்கணும் இல்லைன்னா புத்திசாலியா இருக்கணும், ஒண்ணுதான் இருக்கலாம், எதை நம்ம எதை நம்ம எடுத்து பிக் பண்ணலான்னு எனக்கு நிறைய அப்படியே என்னது சோகமா இருந்தது, ஸ்ட்ரெஸ் இருந்தது. சோ நீங்க அதை பத்தி பேசுனதுக்கு ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றி. அண்ட் தேங்க்யூ. நம்ம தேங்க்யூ ஸோ மச். அண்ட் இப்ப ஆடியன்ஸ்க்கு ஏதாச்சும் கேள்வி இருந்ததுன்னா நம்ம பேனலிஸ்ட்க்கு நீங்க ஜூம்லயே ஹேண்ட் ரைஸ் பண்ணி கேட்கலாம். ஸோ ப்ளீஸ் ஃபீல் ஃப்ரீ. ஒரு நிமிஷம்.
Maybe check the chat.
The chat. Okay. 1 second.
Yeah.
Thank you. And ஏதாச்சும் கேள்வி இருந்தா, so if anyone has any questions, they can put them in the chat or ask. And we'll give them a couple minutes to do that. Yes. And please feel free to ask. No shame. Okay. Appa or Duraikkannan, you're first.
Okay, as people are thinking, I thought, okay, let me start with my comment or feedback. First of all, thanks everyone. Thanks to, first of all, let me start with the happy Women's Day. The Women's Day night was ended with wonderful panel discussion. I'm very grateful to you three all, and also my lovely daughter Kanmani. This is after a long time I'm getting heard talking, so I'm very pleased the Kanmani moderate this one. Thanks a lot, Kanmani, and thanks everyone. The probably I would have told some of you the main reason why we did not generally. I mean, most of the time when you look at the Women's Day celebration, people call who are very successful in business or wealthy, right? And they feel we thought, okay, that's not a right thing to do it because that's what our parents are instill on us, right? Say that, okay, education, that is good, right? Education is the one going to bring us here. But at the same time, most of the time say that either you have to be a doctor or you have to be an engineer, childhood, right? If you try to choose, even we did not know what are the other fields available, if you try to choose something else, they say that, no, this is not going to help you for living, right? So our organization, we talked about it, and we thought probably we need to go in a different direction. And also we are a diaspora, right? Here there are a lot of opportunities for our kids, next generation. So we have to, instead of just going with the professional areas like engineers, doctors, or lawyers, something, we need to find a people who got to do exceptional fields like sports, right? Journalism, politics, right? And also feminism, labor rights, those kind of things, right? So last 4-5 years, we are finding people to do this event. It is really very hard to find a people, right? We search for days and weeks, and every year we find few people. Initially, we started with a couple of college-going kids, Tamil kids who got into international games like ping pong and wrestling, women wrestling. Women wrestling really, I was very amazed to hear that, okay, there was a Tamil women wrestler in America, right? And also she participated in international games. And we try to find journalists, those kind of people. And my other motivation is, we know Jews here, right? If they sneeze, then hold, not only America, even the world crumbles, right? So probably we need to go to all the places. The Tamil community also, not only education, right? We need to go to all the places so that we will be very powerful community, be a diaspora, Tamil diaspora, very big diaspora. So that's the thought behind bringing this event. And also this event, we don't put language as a limitation. We say that, okay, speakers, they can speak either in Tamil or English, whatever they feel like, right? That said, today's event was very, very wonderful event. I really enjoyed, and really, I'm very thankful to you three for your wonderful speech. Thanks a lot. Let me start with us. I haven't seen anybody else raising their hand, so let me start with a question. First of all, question to Nimmi and Jeeva, both of you. The field you've chosen, right? Kalai, I will come to you. The field you've chosen, right? It's a very difficult one. The same reason I told you, right? Our parents has to, okay, go into education, doctor, engineer, something like that, but you've chosen a different field. Even in America, we see that even Tamil community also, there are a lot of domestic violence, all those things, but still they are not getting help. But there is not much help for them, right? Considering all those things, how did you, you gave your reason to choose the field. My question is, what kind of feedback you receive from your own Tamil community, whether they are encouraging you or discouraging you, what kind of feedback you received? Question to both of you. Who wants to start first? You can start, Nimmi and Jeeva.
I'm happy to answer quickly, and then I may have to go. Unfortunately, it's a bit late here, but I will. I think for Olam Tamils, it's a little bit different. There's also, yes, there is the doctor, engineer, the sort of traditional path, but there's also the fear of getting involved in politics, right? So I think obviously my parents left because of the war, and my uncle was a senior member of the Tamil party there. So I think the first reaction of my parents was not as much a conservative sort of doctor, she should be a doctor, but it was more like, we did all this to bring this child over here, and this idiot's going back to the island and studying politics, right? So I think there's a lot of fear in how they reacted to to my choice to do that, the community has always been incredibly supportive of me in terms of sharing their knowledge, sharing resources, sharing the men and the women, you know, they're very, very supportive of the work that I do. The only thing I would say is that, you know, for both of your questions, or so for both aspects of the question, I think it's important to say that rather than saying that these are not like spaces of power or fields that are oriented towards power, it's simply that we're reading power from a different place and in a different way, you know, because you would have a number of the diaspora who thought the best thing to do was to like raise a bunch of money to have a conservative politician, right, representing the Tamil struggle, whereas we were at that stage, you know, we could get 20,000 to speak to Barack Obama himself, right, because he wasn't that big yet, or you know, again, looking at the question of gender, like if you can, rather than saying like, okay, well, you know, we have to think about how to ally with some of these very problematic, you know, whether it's Israel or others, to get more support for the Tamil struggle. Like we were in spaces where we could organize with some of the biggest Black feminists in the US, and that's a very powerful thing, right? So I think, you know, the PhD, particularly even the field of literature or poetry, you can create a platform and be elevated in a particular way that your access to power is far more valuable than the traditional modes of engaging in power, right? And so I think that's part of the push, is not just to say that we chose something different that is less visible or less powerful or less professional, but that we are so committed to a struggle that we excelled in this profession in a way that has more power, right? And I think that's particularly for young people is important to know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my situation is a little uncommon in the sense that this part is not the uncommon part. Amma have always been huge supporters of whatever I chose to do. I was very lucky in that. I don't have a PhD. You know, I went to undergraduate. I was always very clear about what was interesting to me, but I had no idea what kind of career could feasibly be like made out of studying, you know, immigrant and labor history outside of academia. And I knew that that was not the place that was for me specifically. I think I was, even in this sense, lucky to go to the US educational system despite its many, many flaws, because I was not a student who would have done incredibly well in the Indian education system with like mass memorization and, you know, a huge amount of very important testing, right? It's not that those kids are not learning an incredible amount. It just like probably wouldn't have been very easy for me to navigate. I think, yeah, the biggest thing was finding avenues for me to do the work that I wanted to do and learning about other people who are doing forms of that work. I think also I will push to say there's a lot more respect I have from the Tamil community now that I am a professional organizer, right, in the NGO space, for better or worse. But I'm not doing necessarily incredibly better work than I was 3 years ago when I was a bartender organizing with the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance on the side, right? I think we have chemists and politicians and businessmen who do like incredible, like contribute to the Tamil community by translating, by creating different institutions, and that is recognized as their kind of important work outside of what they do professionally. But that's also true for organizing as well. And I know that that's already true for so many people in the community who are like huge leaders and huge parts of taking care of, you know, people struggling with domestic violence, with different issues, right? Outside of the work that they do. You may be working for the driver's license organization, right? But your true work may not be what you go to work to do every day. And I think that is a real thing that we should tell people and support. You know, it's important to be financially stable. It's important to have healthcare, especially in this country. But you don't have to do, if you don't see a way for you to do the work that you want to do in a professional capacity, it's not always better being a staff member of the organization. It's just given more prestige. It doesn't mean that you'll be more financially stable or that you will necessarily do better work. So I just want to say there are many more jobs than I would have ever imagined existed when I was going to high school, college even. But also that you can do, I think it's incredibly important for everybody to have meaningful work that they do, but that doesn't have to be what you do for a living, right? And there are things that, for example, as a PhD student, I would have been much more vulnerable protesting against imperialism. Not that many of our students are not doing this, right? But there was a lot of vulnerability that I would have had being in a college, trying to do some of the political work I've done in the past, than I did having outside like private sector employment and being as part of a union shop and having a way for me to have my voice heard on the job. So I want to uplift our community members who go into the service sector, especially because it's a very underrated thing, especially also the folks who do things like home care, physical therapy, right? Like really essential jobs in the healthcare and like community services field. They do not get the same respect as doctors do, right? You can make a huge difference in somebody's life doing.
Thank you. Thank you. There is single one. Yeah, you can unmute.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Sengutuvan. I'm part of Puratchikkavignar Mandram. Happy Women's Day, first of all, to all of you. And all three of you delivered very inspiring speeches. I really went through each and every aspects that you've been spoken today. And it's not only for the women, and it's for me also. I had a lot of takeaways from today's event, you know, lot of inspiration from all of you. And thank you so much for participating today. And then and I'm sure whoever is going to watch this, you know, the video on the YouTube or any social medias in future, those younger generation, definitely they have a lot of things to take it from this content. And that kind of event organized by the team. So definitely I appreciate all of you, and happy Women's Day again. அம்மா சகோதரி சொன்னாங்களே, அது தமிழ்ல பேசுனதுக்கு ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றிங்கம்மா. ரொம்ப அருமையா இருந்தது. அந்த மலேசிய தமிழ் உடைய ஸ்லாங் எதுவும் வருமானு பார்த்தேன், ஆனா எதுவுமே வரல. சோ ரொம்ப அழகான உச்சரிப்பு, ரொம்ப அழகான பேசுனீங்கம்மா. அதுல வந்துட்டு என்னோட வழியை நானே வகுத்துக்குவேன், நடக்க ஆரம்பிக்கிறதுக்கு முன்னாடியே வரைபடம் தேவையில்லை. அதுல வந்துட்டு அது ரொம்ப இன்ஸ்பைரிங்கா இருந்துச்சுங்கம்மா. எனக்கு ஒன்னும் வழிகாட்டி நான் யாரு அதையும் இவங்க அவங்க எல்லாம் நான் சூஸ் பண்ணிக்கல. என் வழிய நானே வழிய வச்சுக்கணும்ட்டு கண்டுபிடிச்சு அதுல டிராவல் பண்ணீங்க பாருங்களேன். அந்த யங் ஏஜ்ல அப்படி ஒரு டிசிஷன் எடுத்து காலேஜ் போயிட்டு மாஸ்டர்ஸ் முடிச்சுட்டு இங்க வந்துட்டு எவ்வளவு வருட போராட்டங்கள் ஒவ்வொருத்தருமே. I mean, the other two of them, Nimmi and Jeeva, both of them, you guys went through a lot of rough roads to learn things like the legal system, the social services, the obstacles that you had in your life. So much. Really inspiring, all of you. And salute you guys. And Kanmani, அம்மா கண்மணி நீங்க எங்களுக்கு அவ்வளோ அருமையா இன்னைக்கு நெறியாள்கை பண்ணீங்க. எக்ஸலண்ட் ஒரேஷன்ஸ், ரொம்ப அழகா கொண்டு போனீங்க. அப்ரிஷியேட் யூ லாட் கண்மணி, அண்ட் குட் லக் ஃபார் யூ. ஓகே, And thank you again. And we'll meet sometime. Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Does someone else have a question they want to bring up as well?
Yeah,
Go for it.
Sumi.
Let me just say one thing, yeah, not everyone has, sometimes I think, you need the grits to succeed. And not always, not everyone has the grits, right? Maybe, and sometimes the grits is planted in you because your family is, your family suffered, right? So they transfer the genetic imprinting to fight to succeed. But then there are times you really need role models. So one of the things that I would like is to see that all the other Tamil women can look at us and say, we can do it too, right? Nothing can stop us if we decide what to do. Manam irundal markam undu, right? So you just have to focus on the thing. No matter what you do, and I always say, you talked about, being a doctor and being an engineer is the thing that people look up to. No, you have to find what you're passionate about. Find your passion. It can be somewhere else, far from what you're doing or forced to do. In கீழே படிச்ச ஒவ்வொரு மாணவர்களுக்கும் அதான் சொல்லுவேன். If you're passionate, nobody will ask you to do the work you do. You will do it because you're passionate about it. So I'm passionate about what I do. So I work very hard, but I'm enjoying it because I'm passionate in what I want to do, what I want to succeed. But the passion doesn't have to go away as you age either. Okay, so I would leave two big messages. The young people, find your passion. The older people, don't lose your passion. நிறைய பேர் retire ஆயிட்டு they don't know what to do. And their health drops, okay? So you really need to think about, continue to keep the energy and passion going, and you will stay healthy, okay? And we all, and the younger generation, you do not know how women feel. Remember, you may have a sister, a daughter, who will have to face the same discriminations, the same stares, the same groping, right? And we all went through that. We all learn how to stand up on our own. அப்ப அண்ணன் கூட இருக்க மாட்டாங்க, அப்பா கூட இருக்க மாட்டாங்க, நாங்க தனியா தான் அதுல சண்டை போனோம். ஆனா உங்களுக்கு குழந்தைகள், பெண் குழந்தைகள் இருந்தா, bring them up to succeed, bring them to be the warriors, and let's be the woman warrior. Thank you.
That's rightly said, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you. You mean to say not only youngers, even the elders also, to make life very meaningful till the day we go away. So that is fantastic. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. அடுத்ததாக சுமி.
Hello. கேக்குதா? கேக்குது. Yeah. So it happened to be out of curiosity. I wanted to listen to you all, the ladies, because my experience in the world, from my mom born in Malaysia and I have born in Sri Lanka after the 83 riots. We were teenagers, moved to study here in US, New York. So now my children are in their 30s and they have been, as a single mother, so everyone go through a lot of struggle to establish themselves, study, and above all to do what they have to do. But what I actually see is, I know first generation who comes here without no support, establish themselves really hard, work hard, ready for anything. But the second generation is given a platform. Not everybody is not applying it correctly. What I see now is the passionate about things. இல்லாட்டி என்னன்னு சொல்றது அந்த feminism கொஞ்சம் கூட வருதா. It is whether power seeking as a feminist is damaging our Tamil culture. Because I see younger boys are struggling a lot. Because it is something that I feel it. Women are strong. I am a mother of a girl and a son too. They are strong now because given everything. In future, being considerable for everything, like ஒரு நல்ல ஒரு ஃபியூச்சர் தமிழ் கம்யூனிட்டிக்கு வர வேணும்னு சொன்னா there should be more understanding and அந்த வேல்யூஸ் கொஞ்சம் கொடுக்கணும் போல எனக்கு I feel it. So I just in the timeline I wanted to highlight on that. There are so many people that they cannot even find a partner to marry. That's how I see it, right partners to marry. But there are struggles and also it's not lasting long. It is unfortunate. I mean, I also feel the same, like you all. It is something that we all should think about it, and the services Calamity is doing. I wish I could have Nimmi's and Jeeva's and Calamity's connections, if you don't mind. Being 44 years in this country, I have been involved in many things too. It cannot be sealed it in one quick job, but everybody can have the rights to raise their emotions and feel the way that they think. But it is something that collectively, opening the arm, everyone can reach to something very useful, especially women has more power nowadays. But it could be justifiable. That's how I think. If I'm wrong, please tell me.
Sure, you can ask Mr. Duraikkannan for my contact information.
Sure, thank you. And Nimmi was
this
very sensitive about the work that she was doing. I just Googled it quite right away to see what she's doing. I'm proud of her too. Yeah, Jeeva too.
Yeah, probably you can post your contact in the chat. Then I will connect you with the who you want. Thanks a lot. Probably one thing I want to answer, right? You brought up a good point, and even they're struggling to get their alliance, even those things are breaking, they're not lasting longer. I think that is one of the reasons, right? The world is male chauvinist world, right? Still there is a lot of dominance. They're not understanding the women, and still they try to control. Women are now only they're economically well, right, and they're getting their freedom, and also as they see, they started talking up that is I mean the men are not able to tolerate that, so there is a lot of friction. I understand both the sides they have to it's a give and take policy. Probably over the period of time they will realize, right, as women grow, the men also they realize probably over the period of this society will change. Until then, yeah, this is something we are going to see these kind of things. It is a kind of transition period, I believe, but how long the transition period is going to last, I'm not sure about it, but it has to change quickly, and so that we can see the harmonious world, harmonious home and harmonious world in the future. That's my thought, my 2 cents.
I think there is a real alienation, right? That especially many men are feeling, where they don't see themselves as able to fulfill a traditional role, right? And they feel very isolated from community support, from friendship, right? There's constant pressure, constant, like with social media, right? There's constantly a feeling of missing out. I think there's a lot of anger that men are turning inward and also outward, right? I think it's important to remember that feminism may be a new word, but this has always been there, right? Especially in Tamil culture. We have the oldest recorded women poets, but they are not the first ever poets. I'm sure there was a backlash when they first started. Nah, especially the wandering saints who left a family, maybe, who left a traditional role. And when women enter the workforce, there's always been, right, this transition. I think patriarchy, right, does not just hurt women. It also requires men to kill a lot of different parts of themselves to not look weak, right? That is painful. That leaves scars, right? And it may be like the women in their life were telling them to do this. We all have different internalized things, but it is painful. It leaves scars. And if you take one concrete example, right, many women from Kerala come to US to do nursing. It's a very important part of our nursing program, right? A lot of them marry men, and the women are the primary earners of the household. And some of the men are good at adapting and becoming the primary caretakers of the kids. And then there's also a lot of tension by other people who are from other partners who are feeling like, oh, I am isolated in the US. I'm gone from all of my family support structures. I don't have the power in my household because I'm not the main earner. And I feel like I have lost everything that I was supposed to do as a man. The fact is, you're married to somebody who's helping to support your family, right? You have a stable income. It's a good situation. You have time with children that your parents did not probably have. Your father probably did not have the same amount of time with their kids, right? There's a potential. You can explore new things. You can enter new careers that men were not supposed to do in caretaking, right? There are many different things. It opens the possibilities for everyone, but it also requires being open to the fact that that means change, and that means reconsidering what you put your value in, right? What does success mean? What does being a real man mean? What does it mean to be a strong man in your community? What does it mean supporting other people? Does it mean, making sure that the people in your community are taken care of? That hasn't changed. You just can do in different ways. So I think there's a lot of alienation. There are a lot of struggles. But I think this is also that's something that men need to support each other around. A lot of this is because of loneliness. I genuinely think a lot of these young dudes who became Trump supporters second time around just went on the internet during the pandemic, got lost in some forum and never came back. I don't think we ever got them back. And they became, Trump, Elon Musk fans, and now, they're supporting people getting kidnapped off the streets, even though these are the people who are fighting for the same thing they wanted. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think I hope that was helpful.
Wait a minute. I don't know what to say for this, but yes, the technology and COVID and many things made a difference, but I don't see that. I know it's Women's Day, and we, as women, everybody has strong skills and have gone through many challenges, overcoming many things, which is very appreciable. In the meantime, I'm also thinking it is as a coordination of an effect, reaching out to the right people and getting things done, pulling it together to make a difference is something that every woman should look into also, I feel it. that way. Same thing for men too. Finally, there is say எல்லாரும் ஒரு தாய் பெத்த பிள்ளைகள் தான். But whether you are different இந்த கண்ட்ரிலயா இல்ல வேற கண்ட்ரில இருந்து வந்தீங்களா, எந்த கண்ட்ரில இருந்து வந்தாலும், because the results is probably எல்லாருமே ஒரு நல்ல ஒரு செயலுக்காக தங்களை பணித்தால் நல்லது, அதுதான் நடந்து கொண்டிருக்கு. அதே நேரம் இந்த மாதிரி நல்ல செயல்கள் இப்போதைக்கு இதுகளை வந்து கேட்கறதுக்கு சொல்லி ஒரு பெரிய கூட்டமே இருக்காது, because people are busy on their activities. So that is what I thought. It is great that I'm really thankful seeing you all today speaking. It is nice.
Thank you. Thanks you joined this session. Please keep joining our future sessions also. Finally, Chitra Chandaleka, you raise your hand. Now you pull down. If you want to ask a question, probably you are going to be the last person going to ask question. So, okay, if you want to ask, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to thank you for the first two all three speakers, and then Neriyalar. The first two speakers, Nimmi, and then who is the other one?
Jeeva.
I forgot. Jeeva. Okay. So, yeah, being as an educator myself, and then I just want to, when I was listening to them, I was listening just as a listener, as a, then they are like a students, and because I have taught in the United States in high school and as well as in college, so I heard them as a student's point of view, and also I have raised my kids in here, and then they went to school in the US schools, and then I have been listening about the like a little bit discrimination and kind of stuff, and then how they are facing the in the public school or the private school, either way. So I from the speeches, I heard the words that being a Tamilian and Tamil or Tamilian, and then is that the most struggling part, or being a woman, or being an Indian, or being a Tamilian? Which one is the most affected fact? That was one question, major question, and holding the questions, and then I just want to appreciate the third speaker. அவங்க வந்து தமிழ்ல பேசினதுக்கு மிகவும் மிகவும் நன்றி. என்ன சொல்லணும்னு நினைச்சேன்னா, அவங்களுடைய உரை வந்து கவிதையா நிறைய சொன்னீங்க, இடையில கவிதைகள் போல சொன்னீங்க. பேச்சே கவிதை போலதான் இருந்தது. அதுக்கு முடிக்கும் பொழுது நான் நினைச்சேன், உங்க வாழ்க்கையே கவிதை போலதான் இருக்கு. அதாவது நிறைய எனக்கு சொல்ல போனோம்னா, நீங்க பேசும் பொழுது நிறைய நம்மளை ஒவ்வொரு மகளிரும் இங்க வாழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கிற, அயல் நாட்டில் வாழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கிற ஒவ்வொரு மகளிருக்கும் கூட ஏதோ ஒரு வகையில some part of your speech, all three of you, part of your speech is somewhat some similarities and some differences, basically different stories, but lot of a little portion of your stories is being for everybody, all women, and have the similar stories, somewhat similarities is there. So just wanted to let you know, because இவங்க திருப்பி அந்த பார்வையாளர்ல சுமின்றவங்க பேசினாங்க, அவங்க பேசுறதுலயும் கிட்டத்தட்ட அவங்கள பேச விட்டாலும் நிறைய ஸ்டோரி நமக்கு கிடைக்கும். அதே போல கிட்டத்தட்ட அதே போலதான் இருக்கும். எல்லாருக்குமே ஒரு வெற்றி தோல்வி எல்லாமே நம்ம கடந்து வரோம். அப்புறம் இன்னொருவர் சொன்னாங்க, இன்னும் அவர் செங்குட்டுவன் சொன்னார்னு நினைக்கிறேன். அதாவது ஆண்களுக்கும் கூட அந்த ஒரு இது இருக்கு, அவரும் அந்த ஃபீல் பண்ணாருன்னு சொன்னாங்க. அது போல சொல்ல போனோம்னா என்னுடைய பிள்ளைகளே சொல்லியிருக்காங்க, சம்டைம்ஸ் பீயிங் அ girl is different than them being a woman. Men will be struggling, boys will struggle more than the women, because women have some power, they have some courageous, நமக்குள்ளேயே இருக்குது. அது அதை வச்சு நம்ம ஒரு நம்ம அதை வச்சு நம்ம அவங்களோட பழக முடியும், பலரோட பழகிறதுக்கு கூட வாய்ப்பு இருக்கு. ஆனா கொஞ்சம் பாய்ஸ் கொஞ்சம் ஐசோலேட்டட் ஆயிடுவாங்க. நம்ம பிள்ளைகள், தமிழ் பிள்ளைகள், தமிழ் மாணவர்கள் அல்லது நான் படிக்கிற கல்லூரி மாணவர்கள், இவங்களுக்கு எல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் கூட்டம் இல்லைன்னா, ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் இல்லைன்னா, நண்பர்கள் இல்லைன்னா அவங்க அப்படியே ஐசோலேட்டட் ஆயிடுவாங்க அப்படின்ற ஒரு உணர்வு இருக்கு. அதாவது இந்த கம்யூனிட்டியில இங்க இருக்கும் பொழுது அந்த ஒரு சிக்கல் வரும். எனவே எல்லாருக்கும் ஒரு பெரிய பாராட்டு. கண்மணி ரொம்ப அழகா செய்றீங்க. இட்ஸ் you handled very nice, and I just to have another small question to her father. When she was expressing something like about 12-year-old, when she was in 12, she had some kind of pressure, and then she, being a beautiful woman or beautiful girl or the wise girl, அப்படின்னு சொல்லி அவங்க ஒரு ஸ்ட்ரகிள் சொன்னது. Did you feel that? Did the father feel? Did you identify? Did you feel that her feeling during the time?
Probably not that particular feeling. Now we used to have a lot of fight, all that stuff, right? Different kind of things. So probably I did not realize this particular emotional thing going on in her mind. I used to ask her to study Tamil and give importance to Tamil. Now I'm okay. I'm a lot more mature than probably when she was 12 years or something like that. Right? That time it's a completely different person. Right? I try to put more pressure on getting things done, and also I expect a lot more, perfection, right? Those kind of things. So sometimes, as I ask her to talk in Tamil very often, that is something really bad from my side. Even the childhood, when she comes back from school, she tries to tell a story in English. What I do, I want her to learn Tamil, tell her, hey, hold on, can you tell in Tamil? Suddenly what she says, okay, I'll talk to you later. Right? This kind of things. Right? But later it felt very bad. So there are a lot of things going on. This particular thing, she did not discuss with me, and I don't think I realized this particular aspect of it.
Okay. However you handle it is right, because sometimes you have to ignore, you have to just let it go, so that you are giving the freedom to her feel a little bit more, or handled by herself to decide herself. So either way, it's okay. And another thing, அவங்களுக்கு தமிழ்ல எக்ஸ்பிரஸ் பண்ணி சொல்ல முடியாது. They can feel a lot, but they cannot express in Tamil and let tell you, and they feel in English actually when they grow up here. அப்படியும் இருக்கலாம், அவங்க சொல்லாம இருக்கிறது.
Yeah. Duraikkannan was a different Duraikkannan, not this Duraikkannan who I am now. Right?
Yeah.
Can I make a
However, I just want to say to her, to Kalaimani, you are beautiful and wise as well. So that's what I wanted to say. So thank you very much. And then that's all my question. One question, I let it. If you have time, or if it's okay. Just being a woman or being a Tamilian, because I didn't hear any of you said being an Indian. So, and again, if you have said Indian, then I would have asked another question, probably whether there are some conflicts, understanding from the American points of view, they just look at you as an Indian. They don't look at you as a Tamil or a North Indian or South Indian. So if sometimes they misunderstood, they talk a lot of things to me. Now, I was not a student, but I was an educator, so they never asked directly face to face any questions. I didn't let them ask, but I have heard that they may ask question. They may misunderstood about. They will talk about you are. They say something that actually it belongs to North Indian culture, but they will affect you or attack you or something in words. But at that time, the Tamil, being a Tamilian, they may have some kind of conflicts they have a little bit struggle to answer. So did you have any kind of situation like that? I
So
might.
Probably one final thing, if we can make it short, we have 2 hours.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I will wrap the session up with a comment, Mr. Duraikkannan. Importantly, what I learned is that I got to walk the walk to be accepted, right? So I dressed Western, I spoke English, I taught in English, but then when I was accepted, then I wear sari, right? I go and teach in sari. And then they go, oh, you're Indian. I say, yeah, I've always been an Indian, right? Of course, they don't know how to differentiate me a Tamil from Indian, right? However, I also learned that educating them is critical and we do it. So I invite everybody to my house for Diwali. They get to see how we celebrate. I invite my lab for Krishna Jayanti, right? So they all dress up in saris. Let them rate my saris. So over time they learn, and then I have to teach them that our mother tongue is different. We have our history goes over 2,000 years. So it is part of educating, okay? And that we all owe it to ourselves, and we can talk about that another time. And it's the most important thing that you mentioned as a student. A lot of our kids feel discriminated. They don't see friends. I have nephew and nieces who feel that way in school. But we also, as a community, don't do enough to make them feel proud. How many kids know that their history is 2,500 years ago? They have books that's older than Iliad and Homer, right? So if you instill them, look, your culture, you carry, you have so much to be proud of. And I tell you, I even didn't think of that answer. Professor George had answered that in one of the talks. Why do you think Tamil kids are not proud to say they're Tamil? Because they don't know what they have to be proud about. So I think we all owe it ourselves to recognize these Tamil kids and then bring them and say, look, we are proud of you, but you should realize that you're walking on the gigantic diaspora, what the Tamil is to this world. Anyway, with that, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Kanmani, finally, your closing note and thanks note. Then we'll wind up.
Okay, I'll be so quick. Thank you to everyone for speaking. I really appreciated hearing what everyone was saying. I think as like a young Tamil woman myself, I've felt so often, I find it hard to have discussions with other Tamil women because I don't ever see like political discussions or social discussions as something that's inherently accepted by our communities. So I'm so excited to be here today. It was great to hear reflections on what it means to be Tamil with, 3 different women who have 3 different journeys, and we're all like not born in Tamil Nadu, but still embody what it means to be Tamil in terms of Tamil Nadu's history, and talking about the way that it interconnects with other people and other countries and other cultures, and what it means to be united. So I really appreciated that. And I hope there's other young girls listening as well and understand that, you know, it's okay to like identify with the Tamil woman title and to research and to learn more. And, you know, even if it might not seem inherently or immediately accepting, there is a space for you. You just have to find it. And, you know, everyone is so excited to hear your thoughts and your ambitions. And to summarize what everyone I think was saying, and specifically what Dr. Kalai was saying, you really do not have to cut yourself down to fit into some sort of box or put yourself down. And being a woman, despite all of the hindrances that might come through political attacks and, you know, physical attacks and things of the sort, it is very exciting. There are many multitudes, and there are women you'll meet that will inspire you all the time. And I'm so excited to, again, have talked to all these women and to have heard their stories. So thank you to everyone for speaking. Thank you to everyone for coming. And with that, Nandri, and I hope you guys all have a great night. So thank you.
நன்றி வணக்கம்
நன்றி